Hi and welcome back to my channel, and in this video I'm going to be looking at how to utilise your local MP and councillors if you've got a social enterprise, a community interest company or even a charity. So MPs and councillors are an amazing resource. They can get you in contact with people, they can help you jump the list so you get to talk to like the top person, they can help you get grant funding, they can point you in the right directions of support. They are an untapped resource that a lot of people don't think about. Now, one of the reasons why people don't think about them is they may not align with them politically. So it's always good when you're business minded to put aside any personal political views and just think of it in a business terms of what your MP can do for you. So generally speaking, it doesn't matter what political party they are from. However, there can be some issues if your project doesn't align with their views. So I'm going to cover all the pluses and minuses, how you can contact them, how they can be useful, and what issues can be a problem. But before I get into that, please hit the subscribe button for everything to do with community interest companies, social enterprises, and even charities and grant funding. So that aside, so I've used my MP quite a few times. I find that it doesn't really matter what the political party is that's in charge of the area or what your views are. Generally speaking, your MP and councillors, they work for your community, they serve you as a constituents, they have to talk to you. And I don't know if you know this, but if you ask for a meeting with your MP, they have to give that to you, and that's why they have their clinics. Usually clinics are like weekly, sometimes they're done now via Zoom, or sometimes their teams will answer the question for the MP. So if it's a smaller question or you want to get in contact with somebody, you contact in the first instance your MP's office, and then sometimes the team will reply and give you the details or the information that you need, or sometimes they'll actually book you in with the MP. And councillors are the same. You can contact your local councillors and they will often be a whirlpool of knowledge locally. They'll know all the different charities, the community projects, any kind of grant funding that's coming into the area that you might be able to tap into. So they are all a really useful resource. So how have I used them? So let me give you some examples how I've worked with them. So when I was starting my prison rehab project, I wanted to get in contact with the MOJ because prisons are quite a difficult body to get into when it comes to partnering. And I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to get on their dynamic purchasing system. I didn't know any of that kind of thing, and I didn't have any contacts locally. So I got in contact with my MP, who at the time was George Eustace, who was a Conservative, and I pitched to him basically my whole idea of the prison rehab. I told him about my experience as a probation officer. George already knew about my CIC and he'd visited my community interest company before, so he knew that I worked with offenders and people who are at risk of offending. So what George did is he then got me in contact with the minister that deals with prisons. So at the time, that was Rory Stewart. So Rory wrote to me a really nice letter saying that he was really pleased to see, especially because I was like an ex-probation officer, that I'd come up with this new innovative idea, that they were looking for innovative ideas. So he then got me in contact with the top dog in the MOJ who deals with prison education. So this was so useful that basically my MP had directed me straight to the minister in charge of prisons, who directed me to the top of the MOJ into the department that I needed to contact. I then had meetings with that person and they basically explained to me what I needed to do, how to do it, and they even sent my course. I was able to send the course to them, and he sent it away to the MOJ, to some professionals in the team that assessed the project, and then they gave me loads of feedback on my course, what I needed to change, what was great, etc. So I was then able to go and sell to the prisons. So based on all that contact and based on all those meetings and the fact that they'd assessed my course and said that it was great, I was then able to go to the prisons and say, this is all MOJ approved. I'm now on the dynamic purchasing system, and then prisons were able to buy my course, and I successfully sold to several prisons. So that's one example of how you can get ahead using your MP. So generally speaking, it doesn't matter what their political persuasion is. You should be able to work with them just at business level if you've got a project which is going to solve solutions in our society. Now, the only time I have run into an issue was once when I went to my local MP, again, George Eustace, and I was going to be doing a Black Cornish history project. And I asked him for a reference for my Heritage Lottery grant that I was going to be pulling down at the time. It was for women's history, it was for Black history, and it was for generally for untold stories in Cornish history. And I wanted to basically diversify the curriculum. Now, he said that he couldn't write my reference for that Heritage Lottery project because it went against what he stood for. And of course, there are sort of some cultural wars going on politically, and unfortunately some of these issues have kind of become politicised. So he made a stance that basically he wasn't able to do and support me with that project. Now, he supported me in many other ways with more general projects, but with that particular project, he couldn't write a reference for me. But that's fine, and I accepted that, and I went ahead with my project, got a reference from somebody else, and went ahead and got that grant funding anyway. So just bear in mind that if you are doing something, if you have got especially a Conservative MP and you're doing anything that is considered woke, like for instance, if it's an LGBTQ project, or it is something that will only benefit like the Black community, has kind of singled that out as a target group, then the Conservative MP may say, no, we're looking at more of an inclusive approach. We don't want to sort of single out these sort of marginalised groups. So that's the stand that they take. If you have a Labour MP, they may be more supportive to those types of projects. So there is some politics sort of going on, and there is a little bit divide. But generally speaking, if you're doing a project that benefits young people, or benefits wider communities, older people, or something that helps bring the crime rate down, anything like that, that is not political. That should be something that all the parties support. So generally speaking, they will support you. Now, what are the kind of things that your local town council can help you with? So local councillors can also be a great support. They can sometimes have little pots of money, or know of pots of money that you can apply for, so that can be really useful. But they can also be useful just on your application as a supporter and as a partner. So I've done this lots of times. So lots of times on applications, if I've done something locally, say I've done like a street art project, which I did last year, I went to my local town council, I went to their meeting, they scheduled me in that I was going to be talking at their meeting. I went, I presented my project, and the panel were really supportive of what I was going to do. I was going to do like a youth arts mural in the town, and my funders wanted me to get that approval from my local town council before they funded me. So that was kind of like a tick box thing that I needed to do. I needed to go to them, I needed to get them kind of, not really so much their approval, but their support basically. So I could go back to my funder and say, yes, the town council are really supportive of this. This, is something that they're working towards in terms of bringing young people in and doing great street art and doing that sort of project. Now, it's also worth noting, and town councils can also point you in this direction, of what money is coming into the area in terms of investment. Now, I live in a very deprived area, so there has been a lot of funding that has been going in. We recently got a bid in our local town of a national pot of funding which has come in to kind of renovate and do up the town. Now, I have also tapped into that before. So, for instance, a couple of years ago, I took on a property in Camborne in my local town. It was a derelict shop, and I did it up. I bought it really cheaply, and I accessed that grant funding that had came in locally to actually help me do up and regenerate that shop. So knowing what kind of money is coming into your area is really important, and if you are a CIC, you're in a great position to be able to tap into that. So why not contact your local council? Why not have a chat with somebody and look at what money is coming into the area? What kind of things are they looking like they want to support? What are the gaps? So what's already being supported, and then work out what you could do that would be unique, that would also add to that. It's really important that you set yourself against what other people are doing. You do not want to be, as a CIC, competing locally against another project that's already supported by like your local authority, council, MP, local funders. So always think, what could you do that's different? What is a gap? What isn't already being done? And pitch yourself there. So I hope that's been useful and given you a few tips about how you can utilise your local MPs and your local councillors. If you've got any questions, jump in the chat on my website, and I do answer questions. If you've got like an idea for a local project, or you want to sell to like the sort of the national dynamic purchasing systems like DWP, prisons, anything like that, I've got a lot of experience in that. So do come and have a chat with me over on my website, and I'm happy to answer some questions.